I died when a vending machine rolled down a stairwell and crushed me, and my next clear memory was a golden altar declaring that not one god in this world wanted me. The priest touched the altar twice, then a third time, as if divine rejection might disappear if he pressed hard enough. The hall stayed silent for 1 full second. Then Bram laughed. It started in the front row and spread through the academy like fire through dry grass. 200 students had gathered for the blessing ceremony. Most of them wore new uniforms. Most of them had parents, sponsors, or guild agents watching from the balconies. I had none of those things. I had a borrowed coat, 8 silver coins, and apparently the spiritual appeal of wet bread. The altar had shown everyone else something. A red flame for Bram, a silver blade for Kellen, a green wind mark for Lyra. Even Dax, who had spent the whole morning complaining that the incense smelled like boiled socks, received a minor stone blessing. When I placed my palm on the altar, every symbol went dark. Corvin stood beside the priests with his hands behind his back. He managed the academy rankings, rooms, stipends, and discipline. In other words, he controlled everything a poor student needed. He looked at the dead altar, then at me. "Silas," he said, loudly enough for the upper balcony to hear. "No divine affinity, no contract, no blessing. 0. The word 0 traveled through the room faster than a rumor about free food. Bram leaned toward the student beside him. Even the gods saw him and returned the package. More laughter. I looked at the altar. I had lived 17 years in this world since waking in a baby's body after my very stupid first death. I had learned sword forms, mana control, history, etiquette, and the names of every officially recognized god. I had ranked 31st out of 204 students before the ceremony. None of that mattered now. A blessing was not just power, it was citizenship in the strong half of society. Corvin raised one hand and the room quieted. The academy cannot spend a sponsored room on a student without a divine path. Silas will surrender room 36 before sunset. His monthly support of 12 silver will end immediately. There were murmurs now. That part surprised even Bram. I finally spoke. The scholarship contract says academic ranking determines housing until the end of the term. Corvin smiled. It was the kind of smile a cat might give a mouse after finding a legal document that allowed eating. The contract also allows reassignment when a student cannot enter a recognized combat or craft path. I can still enter general study. You can, he nodded. Without housing, without stipend, without access to divine training rooms. A few students looked away. Lyra did not. She stood near the second row, arms folded, watching me rather than Corvin. We had spoken only a few times before. She was ranked high enough that people noticed when she entered a room, and low enough that arrogant families still ignored her. Her expression did not show pity. I appreciated that. Corvin continued. There is one academy position available. The old Relic warehouse requires a night worker, 6 silver per week. A cot is included. This time the laughter came back. Everyone knew the warehouse. Broken holy symbols, cracked statues, failed charms, rusted ritual tools. Things too weak to auction and too sacred to throw into a furnace. Students called it the divine trash heap. Bram stepped into the aisle and lifted his hand. I support this decision. Nobody had asked him. He kept going anyway. A man rejected by every god should be comfortable around rejected relics. The hall laughed again. I counted slowly in my head. Room lost, 12 silver per month lost. Access lost. New income, 24 silver per month if I worked every week. That was actually double my old stipend, though I would have to sleep beside sacred garbage and work nights. It was not good. It was not hopeless either. Corvin mistook my silence for defeat. You have until sunset to report to the warehouse. I bowed once. Understood. That disappointed Bram more than anger would have. By noon, my room belonged to him. That was not a metaphor. Corvin reassigned room 36 to Bram because Bram's new fire blessing had raised his sponsor value. I carried my entire life down 3 flights of stairs in one wooden box while 6 students watched from the corridor. Bram leaned in my old doorway eating an apple. You forgot something. He tossed my cracked training cup onto the floor. It broke in two. The students around him laughed. I looked at the pieces, then at him. That cup cost 1 copper. Bram blinked. I expected you to be angrier. I am deciding whether you are worth 1 copper. The corridor went quiet. Lyra covered her mouth. I could not tell whether she coughed or laughed. Bram's face turned red, his palm lit with divine fire. Before he could do anything stupid, Corvin's assistant called from the stairs. No duels inside the housing wing! Bram closed his hand. Enjoy the trash heap. I planned to. I picked up the broken cup and carried it with me. The warehouse sat behind the oldest academy building. It was 3 stories tall, made of dark stone, and had exactly 1 clean window. The door groaned when I opened it. Dak sat behind a desk inside. I had expected an old caretaker. Instead, I found a broad student with a stone blessing, messy hair, and a bowl of noodles. He looked at my box. You too? What happened to you? I insulted a donor. Accidentally? No. I liked him immediately. Dax showed me the rules. Relics were stored by condition and danger. Red shelves meant unstable. White shelves meant harmless. Black shelves meant no one knew what the object did. So, naturally, the academy had placed them beside the sleeping area. My cot stood in a side room with a stove, a table, and 1 narrow cabinet. It was smaller than my old room. It was also mine. Dax finished his noodles and handed me a ring of keys. Night work is simple. Count incoming pieces, dust anything with a readable mark. Do not bleed on relics. Do not pray to relics. Do not lick relics. I looked at him. Was the last rule necessary? Very. He refused to explain. At sunset, Dax left. The warehouse became silent. I lit the stove, unpacked my clothes, placed the 2 halves of my cup on the table, and counted my money. 8 silver. If I bought the cheapest academy meals, I could survive. If I wanted meat more than once a week, I needed extra work. I had just finished that calculation when I heard a whisper. Not from the door. Not from the window. From the shelf behind me. Warm me. I turned. Nothing moved. The white shelf held 43 broken relics. I had counted them twice. Warm me. The whisper came again. A small bronze symbol lay under a cracked incense plate. It looked like a sun with 1 ray missing. The academy tag tied to it read, Failed fire token. Output below useful threshold. Resale value, 3 copper. 3 copper. I picked it up. Heat moved into my fingers. Then a calm voice appeared in my mind. The system had been silent since my birth in this world. I knew it existed only because it had spoken once when I opened my eyes as an infant and told me I had reincarnated. For 17 years, it had done nothing else. Now it said that an abandoned blessing had been detected. My heart beat once, hard. The system said I had qualified for 3 possible paths: Master of Abandoned Gods, Relic Collector, and Heavenly Scavenger. I stared at the bronze token. The first path fit the impossible thing happening in my hand. I chose it. No light exploded from the ceiling. No choir sang. That was probably good because I had not repaired the roof. The system gave me 1 rule. I could use blessings that had been abandoned by a god, a temple, or a bonded owner. That was it. 1 rule. 1 broken law of the world. I turned the token over. The whisper changed. 1 flame. 1 last flame. Let me warm someone once more. I understood without being told. The relic still wanted something. I pushed mana into it. A flame appeared over my thumb. It was tiny, very tiny. If Bram's ceremonial fire had been a bonfire, mine was a candle that had lost confidence. But it existed. I counted. 1 second. 2. 3. The flame vanished after 12 seconds. My mana dropped by 6 points out of my normal 100. I waited 10 seconds and tried again. Same result. 12 seconds of flame for 6 mana. I could use it 16 times safely before exhaustion became dangerous. That was not impressive. It was impossible. No god had chosen me. Yet, I had just used divine fire. I laughed once. Then I smelled smoke. The rag beside my hand had caught fire. I slapped it out. My first divine miracle had nearly destroyed my new bed. Like a refrigerator with anger issues, power did not care whether its owner looked dignified. I spent the next hour testing the token. The flame reached no farther than half a meter. It could burn paper in 2 seconds. It took 11 seconds to char a thin board. It could not melt a copper coin. The heat was strongest when I held the token and weaker if I tried to cast without touching it. Temporary power. Weak power. Still power. Then the warehouse bell rang. Someone hammered on the outer door. I opened it and found Kellen carrying a student on his back. The injured boy was unnamed to me, pale and shaking, his uniform soaked from rain. Kellen looked past me. Is Dax here? No. The healing hall is locked for inspection. We need heat. He fell into the canal during training. I moved immediately. We placed the boy near the stove. The wood inside was damp. I tried flint. Nothing. Kellen swore under his breath. The injured student's lips were turning blue. Warm me, the relic whispered. No, not warm me. Warm someone. I understood. I held the bronze symbol under the stove wood and released the flame. 12 seconds. The wood smoked. Second use. 12 more seconds. A small fire caught. Third use. The flames climbed. Warm air filled the room. The bronze token became hot enough that I almost dropped it. Then it cracked down the center. Kellen saw it. His eyes narrowed. Was that divine fire? Yes. From that broken thing? Yes. You were rejected this morning. I remember. He stared at me like I had informed him that chairs could hunt people at night. The system spoke again. The relic's last wish had been fulfilled. The abandoned fire blessing was now mine, permanently. I slowly set the cracked bronze token on the table. Then I lifted my empty hand. A flame appeared above my palm. No relic. This one lasted 20 seconds. It cost 5 mana. I tried again after resting. 20 seconds, 5 mana. The range reached 1 full meter. My weak flame had nearly doubled in duration, cost less mana, and no longer required the object. Kellen watched every test. So the trash became part of you. That appears to be the rule. He looked toward the endless shelves. There were more than 3,000 relics in the building. Then he looked back at me. Oh, that was exactly what I had been thinking. The injured student recovered enough to sit up after half an hour. He saw the fire in my hand. By breakfast the next morning, the rumor had reached the student dining hall. The godless student could use fire. Some said I had hidden a blessing during the ceremony. Some said the altar had malfunctioned. One creative person claimed I had married a fire spirit overnight. Bram found me near the notice board before first lesson. About 60 students stood nearby. Perfect. He walked straight toward me with 3 friends behind him. I heard you are pretending to have a fire blessing. I'm not pretending. He grinned. Show us. I held out my hand. A small flame appeared. The students murmured. Bram stared at it, then laughed. That? His own flame roared over his forearm, almost a meter high. That is your miracle? He asked. I have seen soup hotter than that. The crowd laughed with him. I let my flame disappear. Bram's smile widened. Then Kellen stepped out of the crowd. I saw him use it without a blessing mark. The laughter stopped. Kellen was not my friend. Not yet. He was also not known for lying. Bram's eyes hardened. So what? A trick relic? I pointed at the academy testing lantern mounted beside the notice board. It measured divine output for training challenges. Want to test that? He should have said no. He had an audience, so he said yes. Bram placed his hand near the lantern and released a controlled flame. The lantern rang 3 times. A good result for a fresh blessing. Students clapped. Then I stepped forward. My flame was weaker, but the lantern was not measuring size alone. It measured whether the energy was truly divine. I fed exactly 20 mana into the fire across 4 casts. The lantern rang once. Only once. Bram laughed before the sound finished. Then the lantern's inner crystal turned white. A white response meant uncontracted divine energy. The courtyard went silent. One student whispered, "That is impossible." Another said, "He has no god." Bram stopped smiling. Corvin appeared on the academy steps less than a minute later. He looked at the white crystal, then at me, then at the students watching him. "Silas," he said carefully, "where did you obtain that power?" "From the warehouse you assigned me." That answer hit harder than any joke. Everyone remembered who had sent me there. Bram's face tightened. Corvin's expression did not change, but his fingers curled once behind his back. "Report to my office after lessons." "I work nights now. My schedule is posted." A few students laughed. Corvin looked at them. They stopped. He turned back to me. "After lessons." I nodded. I had won nothing yet except attention. Attention was useful, but dangerous. At noon, Dax paid me my first 3 silver in advance because I had covered the emergency shift. Kellen bought me lunch because I had helped his friend. We ate thick beef stew with carrots, onions, and soft potatoes. The bread was fresh enough to steam when I tore it open. I spread butter across it and watched it melt into the crust. 3 silver in my pocket. A permanent fire blessing. My name on half the academy's lips. One day earlier, I had owned 8 silver and no future. Now I had 11 silver and a very strange future. Lyra sat across from me without asking. "You are too calm," she said. "I ate breakfast." "That is not what I meant." "I know." She looked at my hand. "Everyone thinks you tricked the altar." "Do you?" "No." "Why?" "Because yesterday, when Corvin took your room in front of everyone, you counted your coins before you got angry." I paused with bread halfway to my mouth. "You noticed that?" "I notice useful things." She stood. "Be careful with Corvin." Then she left. That evening, before I could report to Corvin, Dax asked me to inventory a locked cabinet beneath the warehouse stairs. The cabinet had not been opened in 9 years. Inside were black-tagged relics with their names scratched away. Most felt cold. One did not. It was a piece of dark stone shaped like half a face. The moment I touched it, the warehouse lights died. The system became silent. Then a voice that was not the system spoke directly behind my eyes. "At last," it whispered. A human they could not choose. The next morning, I woke with my hand still wrapped around the dark half-mask. That was not a good sign. The last thing I remembered was the voice saying that I was a human the gods could not choose. Then the warehouse lights had gone out. Dax had found me sitting on the floor with my back against the cabinet, awake but unable to hear him for almost a minute. The stone mask now felt ordinary. No blessing, no system message, no whisper. I placed it on the table beside the broken fire token. Dax stared at both objects while chewing a piece of bread. "So one gives you fire and the other insults your understanding of history." "That is one way to summarize it." "Good. I was worried this job might become boring." He poured 2 cups of tea. My old cracked cup was still in pieces, so he pushed one of his toward me. It was ugly, thick, and had a painted fish on the side. I drank from it anyway. At 8 in the morning, Corvin sent 2 assistants to collect me. I took the half-mask with me. His office occupied the top floor of the administration building. The windows were tall. The carpet was soft. My entire old monthly stipend probably could not have bought 1 chair. Corvin sat behind a desk. Oren stood near the wall. I knew him by sight. He taught old theology and relic classification. Students avoided his lectures because he could spend 40 minutes explaining the difference between 2 kinds of ritual nails. Today, I was very happy to see him. Corvin pointed at the chair opposite him. "Sit." I sat. He looked at my hands. "Show me the fire." I did. A small flame burned above my palm. Oren stepped closer. "No contract mark," he murmured. Corvin's jaw tightened. "How?" "I touched a failed relic." "And it bonded to you?" "No, it broke after I fulfilled what it wanted." "What it wanted?" Oren's eyes sharpened. I explained the whisper. "Not the system. Not my class. Those were mine." Corvin listened without interrupting. When I finished, he leaned back. "The relic belongs to the Academy." "It still does. The pieces are on the warehouse table." "The blessing came from Academy property." "The blessing was classified as worthless." "That does not make it yours." I had expected that. I placed the employment sheet Dax had given me on Corvin's desk. Warehouse workers may test unregistered failed relics for classification under supervision or in emergencies. Section 6. Oren's eyebrows rose. Corvin did not look pleased. "Who told you that?" "I read the rules." "That is becoming an irritating habit." "It is cheaper than hiring a lawyer." Oren coughed into his fist. Corvin gave him a flat look. Then Corvin said, "You will surrender any permanent effect for examination." "I do not know how to surrender it." "Then we will determine how." He opened a drawer and removed a white crystal. "Put your hand on this." I did. The crystal remained white. No god. No contract. Corvin tested again. Same result. Oren tested the fire directly with a thin metal rod. The rod glowed orange after 6 seconds. "Divine fire," he said. "Weak, but genuine." Corvin looked through the window toward the courtyard below. Students were gathering for morning ranking drills. "This stays quiet," he said. Oren turned his head. "That may be difficult. Half the academy saw the testing lantern." "I said it stays quiet." I understood then. Corvin was not angry because I had power. He was afraid because he had publicly declared me worthless less than a day before. If my power grew, his judgment looked foolish. People forgive cruelty more easily than embarrassment. Corvin slid a document across the desk. "You may remain enrolled under provisional relic studies. Your warehouse job continues. You will not participate in combat ranking until I approve your power source." That was the trap. Without combat ranking, I could not earn Academy mission pay. The lowest mission paid 5 silver. The best beginner missions paid 20. I needed money. I needed witnesses. I needed Corvin to make a mistake in public. So I signed. He looked surprised. I smiled. That made him more suspicious than if I had argued. After the meeting, Oren followed me into the corridor. "Show me the object that spoke to you." I gave him the half mask. He nearly dropped it, not from weight, from recognition. "Where did you find this?" "Lower cabinet, black tag, no name." Oren turned it over. The back carried 6 shallow lines around a circle. He whispered, "This symbol was removed from the old index." "What did it mean?" "I do not know." He said that too quickly. I waited. Oren sighed. "Come to the archive tonight." "I work tonight." "Then after midnight." "That is still tonight." He frowned at me. "I understand why Corvin finds you irritating." That was almost a compliment. My first class ended before noon. When I returned to the warehouse, Dax had placed a wooden crate on my desk. "Incoming failures," he said. 22 pieces. Temple auction rejected all of them. I looked at the crate. "You want me to test them? I want you to tell me which ones whisper before I accidentally marry a dead candle." We worked together. 19 relics did nothing. 1 made my fingers numb. 1 sneezed dust into my face. The last was a small wooden shield charm split down the middle. The moment I touched it, I heard a tired voice. "One more blow. Let me stop 1 more blow." I pushed mana into it. A transparent shield appeared in front of my forearm. It was the size of a dinner plate. Dax poked it with a broom handle. The shield shattered. We stared at each other. "That was majestic," he said. Hit it harder next time. With pleasure. I waited until my mana recovered. The shield cost 8 mana to form. It lasted 15 seconds if untouched. A light strike broke it. A stronger strike also broke it, but the force that reached my arm was reduced. We measured with training weights. A 10-kilogram swing broke it and lost about half its force. A 20-kilogram swing broke it and lost around 1/4. Weak. Useful. The last wish was simple. Stop one more blow meant exactly that. Dax raised the broom. I stopped him. If I fulfill it on a broom, I may permanently receive a shield designed for angry cleaning equipment. You lack ambition. We needed a real strike. The answer arrived after lunch. Bram entered the warehouse with 7 students behind him. He was not allowed inside storage without authorization. He knew that. He also knew Dax would not throw him out while witnesses were present because Bram's family donated equipment to the academy. Bram looked at the broken relics, then at my cot through the open side room door. This is even worse than I imagined. Dax leaned on the desk. You came here voluntarily. Bram ignored him. He held up a paper. Open challenge. I read it. He had challenged me to a controlled duel in the lower courtyard. I was barred from ranking combat. Bram smiled. If you refuse, everyone will know yesterday's trick was all you had. He wanted me to refuse. If I accepted, Corvin could punish me for violating the provisional agreement. I handed the paper back. No. Bram laughed. His friends joined him. Then I added, challenge the relic instead. He stopped. I held up the wooden shield charm. What? You think warehouse relics are trash? Prove it. 1 attack against this failed shield. No duel, no ranking combat. Just relic testing. Dax slowly smiled. The students behind Bram began whispering. Bram looked at the charm. He had seen my tiny fire. He expected another tiny miracle. Fine, he said. We moved to the lower courtyard. Word spread before we arrived. By the time Dax marked the testing line, more than 80 students had gathered. Kellen appeared near the front. Lyra stood beside him. Even 2 instructors watched from the stairs. Dax raised his voice. This is a relic durability test. Silas is not dueling. Bram will use 1 controlled strike. If either student attacks outside the test, I report them. Bram rolled his shoulders. Divine fire covered his fist. The heat reached me from 6 meters away. That was much stronger than the flame he had shown at the ceremony. He had trained. Good. I needed a real blow. I formed the shield. Transparent light covered my forearm. Laughter moved through the crowd. It really did look pathetic. Bram grinned. That is it? That is it. I will break your arm. Then Corvin will have an interesting conversation with your sponsors. His grin faded. Dax lowered his hand. Bram charged. His fist struck the shield. The transparent light shattered instantly. The wooden charm split in my hand. The crowd shouted. The remaining force hit my forearm and pushed me back 2 steps. Pain traveled to my elbow. But nothing broke. More importantly, the system spoke. The abandoned shield blessing had fulfilled its final wish. It became mine. I lifted my empty left hand. A new shield appeared. Larger. This one covered me from shoulder to hip. The crowd stopped making noise. Bram stared. Dax whispered, "Oh, that is unfair." I tested the cost in my head. 10 mana. Duration, 30 seconds. I still had 72 mana left. Bram pointed at me. "You hit another relic." "My hands are empty." "Then do it again." I looked at Dax. "One more durability test?" He looked at the instructors. One of them nodded. Dax smiled. "One more." Bram attacked harder. His fire-covered fist hit the shield. The barrier bent. It did not break. The crowd exploded. Bram struck again before Dax could stop him. That was not part of the test. The shield cracked but held. Dax shouted, "Stop!" Bram swung a third time. I dropped the shield and stepped sideways. His fist passed my shoulder. I placed one tiny flame directly under the loose strap of his ceremonial sleeve. The strap burned through. His heavy red sleeve fell over his own hand. He panicked and slapped at it. His fire went out. The sleeve wrapped around his face. He stumbled backward and sat down in a water bucket used for training sand. For half a second, nobody reacted. Then 80 students laughed so loudly that people came out of nearby classrooms. Bram stood with water dripping from his coat. I had not hit him. I had not violated the combat restriction. He had attacked outside the test, and everyone had seen it. Corvin arrived 3 minutes later. He took in the bucket, the burned strap, the broken relic, my empty hands, and the crowd. What happened? Dax answered before Bram could. Relic test.
Bram ignored the stop call and attacked twice more.
Kellen raised his hand. I saw it. Lyra raised hers. So did I. Then dozens of students started talking at once. Corvin's face became very still. He could not protect Bram without contradicting an entire courtyard. He looked at me. You used another divine effect. Yes. Without a relic. Yes. The crowd quieted to hear him. I could almost see his problem. Yesterday he had called me useless. Today I had 2 divine abilities. If he kept me out of ranking, people would ask why. If he let me back in, I could keep winning. Either choice hurt him. Lyra spoke from the crowd. Is relic study not a recognized academy path? Corvin turned toward her. It is. Then why is Silas banned from ranking? Several students murmured agreement. Corvin's jaw tightened. Because now there were witnesses. Because now the question was public. Because institutions love rules until rules become visible.
He looked at the instructors.
One of them gave a small shrug. Corvin said, The provisional restriction will be reviewed today. Bram opened his mouth. Corvin cut him off. You will report for discipline after changing your clothes. The laughter started again. Bram left the courtyard wet, furious, and wrapped in a sleeve that looked like it had lost a fight with a curtain. By evening, the restriction disappeared from my record. My combat ranking returned at 187 because I had missed the blessing placement tests. That was low. Low meant room to climb. I also received 12 silver for completing an emergency relic classification request. Dax had filed the shield as a verified active relic before it broke, and Academy rules paid 6 silver for each newly verified divine function. My fire token counted retroactively. 12 silver. Added to my 11, I now had 23 silver. 2 permanent blessings.
187th combat rank. And by dinner, students had stopped calling me godless trash. The new name was Warehouse Mage. It was not elegant. It was progress. Lyra met me outside the dining hall. I heard you are rich now. I have 23 silver. Try not to buy the capital. I was considering half of it. We ate at a small food stall near the academy wall because I wanted something better than free porridge. I spent 1 silver and 4 copper on 2 bowls of chicken noodles. The broth was dark and salty. Thin slices of chicken floated beside green onions and soft-boiled eggs. The noodles were thick enough to hold heat. Lyra added too much pepper, took 1 bite, and immediately regretted every decision that had brought her to that table. Her eyes watered. I pushed my tea toward her. You notice useful things. She drank half the cup. Do not speak. I obeyed. For several minutes, there was only food and street noise. It was the first quiet part of the day.
Then Lyra asked, How many relics are in that warehouse? More than 3,000. And how many can you use? I do not know. She looked at me carefully. That scares you. Yes. Good. Good? People who are not scared of strange power usually become statues in cautionary stories. That was fair. After midnight, I met Oren in the archive. Maeve was already there. She was an advanced research student who worked under Oren and had the permanent expression of someone who had just discovered a footnote more interesting than the person speaking to her. Oren had placed the dark half-mask under a lamp. Maeve slid 3 old books toward me.
Every modern index has this section removed. She showed me gaps in page numbering. Pages 112 jumped to 119. Another volume jumped from 64 to 70. A third had an entire stitched section cut from the binding. 6 pages, I said.
In each copy, Maeve replied. Oren pointed to the 6 shallow lines around the circle on the mask. 6 erased pages, 6 lines. I touched the stone. Nothing happened. Maeve leaned closer.
What did the voice say exactly?
I repeated it. At last, a human they could not choose. Oren became pale. Do not tell the church. That sentence mattered more than anything else he had said. I looked at him. Why? Before he could answer, the archive door opened. Corvin entered with Selma beside him. I recognized Selma immediately. She wore the white and gold coat of the Central Church's Academy office. Her eyes went straight to the half-mask, then to my hand, then to Oren. Corvin smiled without warmth. Excellent, he said. You already brought the evidence together for us. Selma closed the archive door behind her. She did not reach for the half-mask. That made her more dangerous than someone who would have grabbed it. Corvin walked to the table and looked down at the old books. You were instructed to keep the matter quiet. I was instructed, I said. Oren was not. Corvin looked at Oren. Oren folded his hands over his stomach. I am old. Instructions travel slowly. Maeve looked down so nobody would see her smile. Selma ignored all of us and studied the missing pages. How long have you known? She asked Oren. That pages were cut from the oldest indexes? 20 years. That this symbol was connected? Since tonight. Selma finally touched the edge of the half-mask with one gloved finger. Nothing happened. She looked at me. It spoke only to you? Yes. What blessing did it grant? None. What name? None. What demand? None. Corvin exhaled through his nose. Convenient. Selma raised one hand without looking at him. He stopped talking. That told me something useful about the local order of power. Selma was not the highest church authority in the capital, but inside this room she outranked Corvin. She opened a leather case and removed a clear seal stone. This object is now under church review. No, Oren said. The room went still. Selma looked at him. Oren pointed to the black tag tied to the mask. Unknown relics held for more than 5 years become protected Academy archive objects unless formally reclaimed by the donating temple. This one has been here at least 9 years. Selma's eyes narrowed. Maeve quietly slid a ledger across the table. 9 years, 7 months, 11 days. I liked researchers. They carried knives made of paperwork. Selma read the entry. Corvin said, The Academy can waive protection. Oren looked at him. You can request a vote from the Relic Council. Corvin's mouth tightened. There were 7 people on that council. Oren was one of them. Selma closed her case. Fine. The relic remains here for now. Then she looked at me. You do not. What does that mean? Tomorrow morning you will undergo divine compatibility examination in the Central Training Hall, publicly. Corvin glanced at her. That had not been his plan. Selma continued. If your power is legitimate, public testing protects you from accusations of fraud. If it is not, public testing protects the Academy from you. That was reasonable enough to be unpleasant. What will be tested? I asked. Your fire, your shield, any interaction with failed relics. And if I pass? You receive provisional recognition as an independent relic user. Corvin interrupted. That category does not exist. Selma looked at him. It will if he passes. For the first time that night, I almost smiled. We left the archive at 2 in the morning. I had slept less than 4 hours in 2 days. Back at the warehouse, Dax had left a covered plate on my table. 2 meat pies. They were cold. They were also
excellent. The crust cracked under my fingers. Inside was minced beef, onion, black pepper, and thick gravy. I ate both while standing beside the relic shelves. Then I slept for 3 hours. At sunrise, I woke to 31 students outside the warehouse. Dax opened the door, saw them, and closed it again. "What?" I asked. "They want to watch you test trash." I sat up. "Why?" "You are entertainment now." He opened the door again. A student shouted, "Silas, is it true you can steal blessings from broken cups?" Dax closed the door. "I hate success." The public examination was scheduled for noon. That gave me 4 hours. I used them. If Selma wanted relic interaction, I needed something new to interact with. Dax brought out 3 crates of rejected objects. We tested 56 relics. Most were dead. 2 whispered. The first was a cracked glass feather attached to a leather cord. "Run once more," it whispered. "Let the wind carry what I could not." When I pushed mana through it, my body became lighter. I tested the effect in the warehouse corridor. Without the blessing, I covered 20 meters in 4 seconds. With it, I covered 20 meters in 3.5. About 12% faster. The blessing cost 4 mana for 10 seconds. The second relic was a bent iron spoon from a temple kitchen. "Feed one hungry child," it whispered. Dax stared at it. "A holy spoon." "Yes." "What power?" I pushed mana into it. The spoon became warm. We waited. Nothing else happened. Dax nodded solemnly. "Terrifying." I put it aside. I had no hungry child nearby, and I was not going to invent one for power. The wind feather mattered more. Its wish sounded like movement and delivery. On the back of the leather cord was a faded seal from the old Northern Messenger Service. Maeve found a matching record within 20 minutes because Maeve treated obscure records the way starving wolves treated meat. The relic had belonged to a courier who died before delivering a letter. The letter itself had been stored with temple remains. The Academy still had it. Oren brought the sealed envelope from deep storage. The intended recipient was long dead, but the address named a memorial wall inside the old city gate. The wish was not asking for a living person. It wanted the message to reach its destination. I had 3 hours before the examination. The gate was 4 kilometers away. I ran. Lyra came with me, not because I asked. She simply appeared beside the academy gate wearing light training clothes. "You need a witness," she said. "To deliver a dead man's letter? You need witnesses for everything now." That was unfortunately true. Kellen joined us 30 seconds later. "I heard there might be running." "Why are you here?" "I bet Dax 2 silver you would get another power before noon." I stared at him. "You bet on my life?" "Your life has good odds." We ran. The feather's temporary blessing cut almost 4 minutes from the trip, but it drained 48 mana because I used it 12 times. At the old gate, we found the memorial wall. Hundreds of names had been carved into the stone. I did not read them aloud. The names belonged to the dead, and I had already promised myself I would not casually turn every background person into a named character just because history was sad. There was a narrow slot beneath the courier symbol. I placed the sealed letter inside. The glass feather broke. Wind circled my wrist. The system told me the abandoned wind blessing had fulfilled its last wish. The power became mine. I tested it once. 10 seconds, 3 mana. My speed increased by 18% now. Kellen stared at the broken feather. "You got stronger by delivering mail." "Yes. I trained 6 years with a sword." "I respect your sacrifice." Lyra laughed. We ran back. The central training hall was full when we arrived. Not half full, full. More than 300 students, instructors, assistants, and guests crowded the seats. The news had reached neighboring schools. The white testing lantern from the courtyard stood on a platform at the center. Selma waited beside it. Corvin stood 3 steps behind her. Bram sat in the front row with a new sleeve and the expression of a man forced to attend a festival celebrating his own humiliation. Dax waved from the side. Oren and Maeve sat near the testing table. I had all 9 other named people in one room now, which felt less like coincidence and more like the universe trying to save on introductions. Selma called for silence. Silas was recorded yesterday with no divine contract and no recognized blessing. He later demonstrated 2 divine effects. Today we will verify the source and limits. She looked at me. Fire first. I raised my hand. The flame appeared. The lantern rang once and turned white. Murmurs filled the hall. Duration? Selma asked.
20 seconds per 5 mana under normal output.
Maximum safe repetitions?
About 16 from full mana if I do nothing else.
She nodded. Shield.
I formed it. She ordered a training construct to strike. The first blow carried about 15 kilograms of force. The shield held. The second carried 30. A crack appeared. The third carried 45. The shield broke.
Cost?
10 mana.
Duration without impact?
30 seconds. Again, she nodded. Corvin stepped forward.
That proves only that he possesses 2 unregistered effects. It does not prove he can legitimately acquire them from failed relics.
Selma looked toward the testing table.
Bring one.
Corvin smiled. That was when I realized he had prepared something. An assistant carried out a gray box and opened it. Inside lay 6 failed relics. I touched the first. Nothing. Second. Nothing. Third. Nothing. Bram began to smile. 4th. Dead. 5th. Dead. 6th. Dead. The hall became restless. Corvin spread his hands. Perhaps yesterday's events were unusual relic bonds, not a repeatable ability. He had selected dead objects. Of course he had. Selma's expression cooled.
Were these chosen at random?
Corvin answered immediately.
Yes.
Maeve stood.
No.
Every head turned toward her.
She held up a ledger sheet. These 6 were all classified as fully exhausted, not merely failed. They have no residual divine response. The selection was entered under Corvin's authorization at 6 this morning.
Silence. Corvin looked at Maeve as if discovering footnotes could be a capital crime. She sat down. Orin smiled pleasantly. Selma's voice became very quiet.
Corvin, he said, I wanted a controlled baseline. In a public legitimacy test? I believed it necessary.
The crowd began whispering. Not about me, about him. That was the first real crack in his status. I could have stopped there. Instead, I reached into my pocket and removed the broken wind feather cord. I completed another relic wish this morning. The room quieted again. Corvin looked at me sharply. Selma said, Demonstrate. I did. Wind wrapped around my legs. I crossed the 20-meter testing lane in 3.5 seconds without using full speed. The crowd shouted. Selma checked the lantern. White. Uncontracted divine energy. Third blessing. Corvin's face lost color. Bram leaned forward. I returned to the center. Selma asked, Can you use it with another effect? I froze. I had never tried. That was the question I had been avoiding. The world's normal rule was simple. A fresh blessed student had one divine channel. Even people favored by multiple temples needed separate rituals and years of training to prevent interference. I had no channel at all. I had one cheat. Abandoned blessings accepted me. But could they accept each other? I formed the shield. 10 mana. Then I activated wind. 3 mana. Both remained. The hall went completely silent. I took one step. The shield moved with me. No collapse. No backlash. I raised my right hand and created fire. For 1 second, I held 3 divine blessings at the same time. Fire, shield, wind. All white on the testing lantern. The lantern screamed, not rang, screamed. Its crystal flashed so brightly that several students covered their eyes. Then it cracked. A line split the white crystal from top to bottom.
Nobody laughed. Nobody whispered. Selma stared at me. Oren had gone pale. Maeve was writing so fast her pen tore the page. Bram stood without realizing he had stood. Corvin whispered, "That cannot happen." I let the powers vanish. My mana had dropped by 18 points in only a few seconds because maintaining 3 effects together increased the drain. That was the price. Useful information. Dangerous information. Selma recovered first. "Again," she said. I shook my head. Not immediately. Why? Combined use increases mana drain by roughly 40%. I need recovery. The crowd reacted again. Not because 40% sounded impressive, because I had given them a limit. Limits made impossible things feel real. Selma turned to the audience. "The examination is complete." Corvin stepped forward. "It is not. We still do not know whether these powers belong to the Academy." That was his last mistake. 300 people heard him. Students who had spent years earning blessings heard him. Sponsors heard him. Instructors heard him. Selma asked, "Do you claim ownership of a person's divine abilities?" Corvin's mouth opened. He saw the trap too late. "No. I claim ownership of effects derived from Academy relics." Oren stood. "The Wind Relic was donated by a temple and classified for disposal. The Fire Token was valued at 3 copper. The Shield Charm was rejected at auction."
If the Academy now claims permanent ownership because Silas made them useful, then every student using an Academy training artifact may face the same claim. That spread through the room like a spark through oil. Parents in the balcony started talking. One instructor shook his head. Another looked directly at Corvin. Selma said, "The church recognizes Silas as an independent relic user pending central review. His acquired divine effects are personal unless a future legal ruling states otherwise." The hall erupted. Not cheering exactly, something louder and messier. I heard my name from 3 directions. Bram sat down slowly. Corvin remained standing on the platform while hundreds of people discussed how badly his plan had failed. Public humiliation did not always require someone falling into a bucket. Sometimes all you needed was a microphone and a bad argument. My combat rank changed that afternoon. The Academy gave me credit for the official testing run and relic defense demonstration. I moved from 187 to 124. Still low. 63 places in one day. The relic department paid 18 silver for 3 verified blessing functions. The central church office added 10 silver as an examination stipend because Selma had required public testing. 28 silver earned. I spent 2 silver on archive access fees and 1 on food. My total savings reached 48 silver. 3 permanent blessings, rank 124. And now the Academy notice board carried an official line under my name. Independent relic user. Students stood in front of it all evening. Some laughed, some argued, some copied the words into letters home. By sunset, Dax had started charging 1 copper for people who entered the warehouse only to stare at me. "You cannot do that," I told him. "I am funding preservation." "You bought sausages." "Preserving morale." He gave me one. It was excellent. Later, Lyra and I ate dinner in the warehouse kitchen. Dax had cooked potatoes in a heavy pan with onion, garlic, and pieces of smoked sausage. The edges were crisp, the centers were soft. We had dark bread, pickled vegetables, and hot tea. For the first time, the warehouse did not feel like exile. It felt like a home nobody else had wanted. Lyra looked at the shelves. 3,000 relics. Most are dead. You tested 78 in 2 days and found 3 useful ones. 4 if the spoon counts. The spoon does not count. It has feelings. It warms soup. That is more useful than some students. She almost smiled. Then the smile disappeared. What happens when the central church arrives? I looked at the dark half mask on the far table. Nothing good. After midnight,
I tested the mask again. This time I was alone except for Orin and Maeve. I placed my hand on the stone. No voice. I activated fire. Nothing. Shield. Nothing. Wind. The mask became warm. All three together. The 6 lines on the back began to glow. One line turned white. Then the system spoke. It did not offer a new blessing. It told me something worse. The relic was not abandoned. The god connected to it was still alive. I did not sleep after learning that the forgotten god was still alive. I tried. My body lay on the cot. My eyes stayed open. The dark half-mask sat inside a locked iron box across the room, which somehow made it feel closer. At dawn, Orin returned with an answer I did not like. "If the god is alive," he said, "then the relic is not abandoned. You should not be able to take anything from it." "I cannot." "That is the good part." "There is a good part?" "You have not accidentally stolen from a living god." Dax poured tea. "That sentence has too many bad possibilities." Maeve placed a copied archive sheet on the table. The 6-line symbol appears once in a damaged inventory from almost 300 years ago. Not as a god's mark, as a seal used to close something called a divine absence. "What is a divine absence?" I asked. "No explanation survives." "Convenient." Maeve looked offended on behalf of history. "I assure you, the missing explanation is personally upsetting." A bell rang outside. Not the class bell, the mission bell. Dax opened the warehouse door. A crowd had already formed around the notice board. Corvin stood on the steps with 2 instructors. His voice carried across the yard. "Emergency field certification. An abandoned shrine beneath the eastern training grounds has developed unstable relic activity. Combat students ranked between 60 and 150 may volunteer. Successful participants receive 20 silver and ranking credit." 20 silver. My rank was 124. That was not an accident. Lyra appeared at my shoulder. "Trap?" "Yes." "Going?" "Yes." "Good." She signed before I did. Kellen signed next. Bram approached the board, saw the rank range, and stopped. His rank had risen to 42 after his fire blessing. He could not enter. For once, the rule hurt him instead of me. Dax leaned out of the warehouse. 20 silver is not enough to die underground." "I do not plan to die." That is what people say immediately before creating paperwork. 27 students volunteered. Corvin looked at my name on the sheet and gave no reaction. That confirmed the trap better than a smile would have. At 9 in the morning, we entered the old shrine. The academy had built training fields over it generations ago. Most students did not know it existed. The entrance was a stone stair hidden beneath a storage shed. Selma attended as church observer. Orin came for relic classification. Maeve came because nobody had successfully stopped her. Dax was officially warehouse support. Unofficially, he had brought sandwiches. There were enough witnesses. The shrine smelled like wet stone and old dust. White chalk marks divided safe passages from untested rooms. Corvin stood at the entrance. "The task is simple. Teams will identify unstable objects, mark them, and return. No one enters sealed chambers. No one removes relics without approval." He looked directly at me when he said the last part. I nodded. My team was Lyra, Kellen, and 4 other students. We moved down the western corridor. For the first 30 minutes, nothing happened. We found a cracked prayer bowl. Dead. 3 stone beads. Dead. A bronze plate. Dead. Then I touched a small bell without a clapper. A whisper entered my mind. "Ring once. Let them hear that we were here." I pulled my hand away. Lyra saw my face. "1? "Yes." Kellen looked around. "What does it want?" "To ring." He stared at the bell. "It has no clapper." That is the problem. The object granted a temporary effect when I fed mana into it. A pulse moved through my arm. The air in front of me shook. Dust jumped from the wall. Kellen took 1 step back. Sound? Force through vibration. I tested carefully. 5 mana created a short pulse reaching about 2 meters. It could push a wooden training block half a meter. Weak again. Useful again. The bell's wish was not simply to make noise. It wanted someone to hear. Who? I looked at the old walls. A carved groove ran around the room at shoulder height. Lyra followed it with her fingers. This used to hold metal. Orin arrived after we called him. He examined the groove and bell. A chain of ritual bells, perhaps. Maeve crouched by the floor. There are mounting holes every 6 meters. She looked toward the corridor. If all the bells rang together, the whole shrine would hear them. Most bells were gone. The remaining one wanted the old sound one last time. We needed a way to make the shrine itself ring. Then the floor shook. A scream came from the eastern corridor. We ran. 2 teams were retreating from a chamber Corvin had declared sealed. The seal was broken. Something crawled out behind them. It had once been a stone guardian. Now, old divine residue had swollen through its joints like black roots. It was 3 meters tall, shaped roughly like a man, and carried half a stone door as a shield. One student threw a spear of light. The guardian barely moved. Another cast a water blade. It chipped stone from the shoulder. The guardian swung its shield. 3 students went down. Selma shouted for everyone to retreat. Corvin stood near the stairs. His face had gone white. This chamber was inspected yesterday, he said. Orin looked at the broken seal. By whom? Corvin did not answer. There would be time for that later. The guardian charged. I formed my shield. It hit me with the stone door. My barrier shattered immediately. The impact threw me backward 4 meters. I landed hard enough to lose air. Mana remaining, 89. The crowd at the corridor mouth shouted. Lyra pulled me up. Still alive? Yes. Excellent standard. Kellen attacked from the side. His silver blade blessing cut a line across the guardian's knee. Not deep enough. The creature backhanded him into the wall. Lyra used wind to pull 2 injured students out of reach. I watched the guardian move. Black divine residue pulsed through cracks in its chest. Fire might damage it, but my fire was too weak at range. I needed to get close. That was what the shield was for. I activated wind and shield together. Mana drain increased immediately. I moved 18% faster and charged. The guardian swung. I ducked under the stone door. My shield caught its elbow instead of the full strike. A crack appeared, but held. I reached the chest. Fire. 3 blessings at once. My mana began falling fast. I pressed the flame into one black crack. 5 seconds. 10. The residue smoked. The guardian roared without a mouth. Its knee hit my shield. The barrier broke. I lost wind before the combined drain emptied me. Mana remaining, 51. The guardian grabbed my coat. Kellen cut its fingers. Lyra's wind pulled me free. We retreated. Students behind us were no longer shouting insults or jokes. They were counting on us. That changed the weight of the room. Selma raised a white barrier across the corridor. The guardian struck it. The barrier shook. How long? I asked. 2 minutes, she said. I looked at the clapperless bell in my hand. Ring once. Let them hear that we were here. The guardian was full of unstable divine residue. The shrine walls had once carried metal bells around every corridor. Metal was gone. But vibration did not require bells. It required a structure. I touched the stone wall and used the temporary sound pulse. 5 mana. The wall hummed. Dust fell from the ceiling. Far down the corridor, something answered. A faint tone. Maeve's head snapped up. Again. I did. Another 5 mana. This time we all heard it. A bell tone from beneath the floor. Orin stared at the old groove. The bells are not gone. They fell into the lower channels, Maeve said. The guardian struck Selma's barrier again. A crack appeared. 1 minute. I ran back toward the western room. Lyra followed. We found the nearest floor drain and pulled away the stone cover. Darkness below. I made fire. Bronze glimmered under the floor. Dozens of old bells lay in a narrow channel, not attached, not arranged. Still metal.
still able to ring. The temporary blessing could send vibration through stone. I needed one strong pulse. My mana had recovered only slightly. 49. Combined use cost too much. I did not need combined use. I needed one thing done well. I placed both hands on the floor and pushed 20 mana through the clapperless bell. The relic burned cold in my palm. The pulse hit the stone. Every loose bronze bell beneath the shrine rang at once. The sound was enormous. It rolled through corridors and chambers like thunder trapped underground. Students covered their ears. The guardians stopped. The black residue inside it flashed. The clapperless bell cracked. Then the system spoke. The last wish had been fulfilled. The abandoned resonance blessing became mine. A memory hit me. Not my memory. Not imagination. I stood in the same shrine 300 years earlier. There were people everywhere. They were carrying statues toward the central chamber. Not broken statues. Whole ones. 6 different divine symbols covered the walls. A child rang the bells while soldiers in white and gold coats entered through the upper stairs. The soldiers carried official church marks. A priest shouted an order, not to evacuate, to erase. Hammers struck stone faces, books burned, names were scraped from walls. People screamed that the Six had protected them during a plague. The soldiers kept breaking statues. Then I saw the dark half mask, whole. It rested on the face of a tall statue at the back of the shrine. One soldier raised a hammer. The memory ended. I came back on my knees. Lyra had one hand on my shoulder. "Silas," I breathed once. "What happened?" she asked. The relic remembered. That was new. Permanent blessings did not only leave power, some left memory. The guardian roared again. No time. But now I understood the bells. The shrine had used resonance to move divine energy through its walls. The guardian was full of that energy. I stood. My new permanent resonance pulse cost 4 mana at normal strength. At close range, it could shake loose objects and disrupt unstable structures. The guardian was an unstable structure. I ran back. Selma's barrier broke as I entered the eastern corridor. The guardian came through. More than 20 students watched. Corvin watched. Oren watched. Dax, Maeve, Kellen, and Lyra watched. I activated wind. 3 mana. I crossed the distance before the stone door came down. Shield, 10 mana. The door smashed into it. The barrier cracked. I stepped inside the guardian's reach. Resonance, 4 mana. The pulse hit the black crack I had burned earlier. The residue flickered. Again, 4 mana. A line split across the guardian's chest. Again, 4 mana. The black roots snapped. The guardian froze. Then Kellen shouted, "Move!" I jumped back with wind. The stone body collapsed inward. The half door struck the ground. Dust filled the corridor. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then the students began cheering. Not polite applause. They screamed. Kellen lifted his sword. Lyra laughed from somewhere behind the dust. Dax shouted, "20 silver is still too low." Even Selma smiled once. I sat down before my legs made the decision for me. Mana remaining, 9. That was the price. I had won, but another 30 seconds of fighting would have ended badly. Corvin pushed through the students. He looked at the ruined guardian, then at the broken seal, then at me. "You were told not to remove relics." I held up the remains of the bell. "I did not remove it. It broke here." Several students laughed. Corvin's eyes flashed. This incident happened because unauthorized relic interaction destabilized the shrine. Oren spoke from behind him. "No." Corvin turned. Oren held a fresh inspection sheet. This seal was opened before the students arrived. Maeve held up another paper. "Signed inspection authorization, 6 yesterday evening." Selma took it. Her face changed. "Authorized by Corvin." The corridor went silent. Corvin said, "I ordered an inspection." "By whom?" Selma asked. He did not answer. Dax pointed at the cracked chamber door. "You sent someone into a sealed shrine the night before an emergency certification?" Corvin's voice sharpened.
I was verifying the route. And failed to report an unstable guardian, Oren said. More students began murmuring. The same students Corvin had gathered as an audience for my failure now watched his explanation collapse. Selma folded the authorization sheet. The church office will take control of the incident review. Corvin looked at her. That is Academy jurisdiction. It stopped being only Academy jurisdiction when a sealed divine site was opened under your signature. His face went still. No bucket this time. No burned sleeve. Just 27 combat students, 2 instructors, a church observer, and a signed piece of paper. Public proof was crueler than insults. By afternoon, Corvin's authority over Relic missions was suspended pending review.
The notice appeared on the same board where he had announced my failure 3 days earlier. Students stood in front of it and read every word. My mission reward increased from 20 silver to 40 because I had neutralized the Guardian. The Relic department paid another 6 silver for the new Resonance Blessing classification. The church paid 25 silver for my written testimony about the incident. 71 silver earned in 1 day. My savings rose from 48 to 119 after food and archive costs. My combat rank jumped from 124 to 68. 4 permanent blessings: fire, shield, wind, resonance. And my reputation changed again. People no longer said warehouse mage. They started saying relic breaker. I did not like it. Dax loved it. He painted it on a small board and hung it over my cot. I took it down. He hung it higher. I bought a real mattress that evening for 18 silver. That purchase felt almost as important as the new blessing. The old cot had been designed by someone who believed sleep should build character through spinal damage. We carried the mattress back together. Dax cooked beef over the stove while Kellen cut bread. Lyra chopped onions badly but confidently. Oren brought a jar of preserved mushrooms. Maeve brought nothing because she had forgotten food existed until the smell reminded her. We ate around the warehouse table. The beef was browned at the edges and soft inside. The onions had cooked in the meat juices until they turned sweet. The mushrooms were salty. The bread soaked up everything left on the plates. For 1 hour, nobody discussed gods. Nobody discussed the church. Nobody discussed the mask. Kellen told a story about Dax losing a training sword in a pond. Dax claimed the pond had stolen it. Lyra asked whether the pond had also written his disciplinary report. I laughed hard enough that my ribs hurt from the shrine fight. Then someone knocked on the warehouse door. 3 slow knocks. Selma entered. She did not sit. The Central Church received my report. My appetite disappeared. That was fast. They sent someone before my report arrived. Oren put down his fork. Who? Selma looked at me. Ivor. I had heard the name only in lectures. Senior examiner, capital authority, specialist in illegal blessings. Selma continued. He entered the city an hour ago with an order signed by the High Council. What order? I asked. She placed a sealed document on the table. To determine whether you are human property, divine property, or a threat that should be destroyed. Ivor arrived at the warehouse before sunrise. He brought no soldiers. He brought 3 clerks, 2 sealed cases, and enough authority that the academy gate opened before anyone asked questions. I was awake with Lyra, Dax, Oren, Maeve, Kellen, and Selma. Corvin waited outside. Ivor entered alone. He looked about 40, lean and tired. Silas. Ivor? Dax whispered, Good, everyone important has arrived. Ivor placed the High Council order on the table. I am not here because you embarrassed Corvin. I am here because uncontracted divine power killed 43 people 31 years ago. That removed the easy version of him from my mind. What happened? I asked. A man collected fragments from incompatible temples. His divine channels tore apart. The release destroyed a chapel and 2 streets. Real fear, real graves. Better motivation than pride. Ivor looked at my hands. You carried 3 incompatible blessings at once. 4 now.
His eyes moved to Selma.
Resonance, she said. Yesterday.
Ivor closed his eyes for 1 second. Of course. The central examination would happen at noon in the Academy arena. Publicly. If I failed, nobody could claim the church had removed me in secret.
If I passed, nobody could claim the church had hidden the result. Ivor ordered every relic connected to me moved to a sealed table. The fire token pieces, the shield fragments, the wind feather cord, the broken bell, the dark half mask. At 7, the notice went up. By 9, food carts surrounded the arena. By 10, someone sold wooden shields with my name carved into them. My profit was 0. Dax bought one. Historical preservation, he said. You are holding it upside down. History is complicated. I trained until 11. Fire cost 5 mana for 20 seconds. Shield cost 10 mana for 30 seconds without heavy impact. Wind cost 3 mana for 10 seconds. Resonance cost 4 mana per normal pulse. 2 powers together increased the drain. 3 together increased it by almost 40%. I tested all 4 once. 8 seconds cost 29 mana and made blood run from my nose. Dax handed me a cloth. Useful? Yes. You learned pain hurts. I learned the price. That mattered. My individual blessings were weak compared with true chosen fighters. Lyra's wind was faster. Kellen's silver blade cut deeper. Bram's fire was larger. My advantage was choice, not free strength. Before the examination, Maeve found me with 6 copied inventory pages. Each came from a different year. Each listed relics carrying one of the 6 scratched symbols from the half-mask. How many? I asked.
At least 412 in surviving records. 193 are still in your warehouse.
I looked toward the old stone building. The place where Corvin had sent me as punishment held nearly 200 relics from erased divine traditions. The trash heap was a graveyard with shelves, or a prison. The arena held almost 1,000 people at noon. Students filled the lower seats. Instructors, donors, merchants, and temple workers filled the upper rows. Bram sat with the combat students.
He did not laugh when I entered. 5 days earlier, 200 people had watched the altar reject me. Now, almost 5 times that number had come to see whether I was dangerous. Ivor stood in the center circle. Silas is not accused of a crime. We will test hidden contracts, suppression response, instability, and control under stress. He opened the first case. Inside was a white metal ring. The crowd reacted. A null crown. When active, Ivor said, it disconnects divine blessings from their source within 30 meters for 1 minute. He looked at Lyra. Demonstrate. Wind curled around her wrist. Ivor touched the crown. White lights spread across the floor. Lyra's wind vanished. Kellen tried his silver blade. Gone. Selma's white light vanished too. Ivor looked at me. Your turn. I stepped into the field. I raised my hand. Fire appeared. The arena gave one enormous gasp. I formed my shield. It appeared. Wind wrapped around my legs. Still there. I sent a resonance pulse into a hanging target. It swung backward. The null crown hummed harder. Nothing changed. Then I understood. The crown severed a blessing from its god. Mine had no gods connected to them anymore. They had been abandoned. The defect was the protection. Ivor deactivated the crown early. He tested it on Selma again, then himself. Their blessings vanished normally. The crown worked. He looked at me. That is worse than I expected. Bram laughed once from the seats. Not at me, at Ivor. Even Ivor almost smiled. Then came the control test. 3 stone constructs entered the circle. 1 carried a wooden sword. 1 carried a weighted net. 1 carried a padded hammer. 3 brass seals were fixed to their backs. I had 2 minutes to touch all 3. Destroying a construct meant failure. Leaving the circle meant failure. The bell rang. The sword construct attacked first. I stepped back without power. The net flew. Wind. 3 mana. I moved aside. The hammer blocked my path. Shield.
10 mana. The padded weapon smashed into the barrier. It cracked, but held. I moved with the impact and slipped past the construct. First seal. The crowd shouted. The sword construct turned faster than expected. Its wooden blade hit my ribs. Pain folded me for half a second. I stayed upright. Wind again. I moved behind it. It rotated with me. Too fast. Resonance. 4 mana. I hit the sand beside its foot instead of the machine. Dust jumped up. Its balance system corrected the wrong direction. Second seal. The noise grew. The net construct recovered its weapon and threw again. I used fire for 1 second against the dry rope as it passed my hand. The line weakened and snapped under its own weights. The net collapsed beside me. The hammer charged. I waited. Its weapon came down. 1 resonance pulse hit the padded head and pushed it sideways. I stepped inside, put 1 foot against the construct's knee, and touched the 3rd seal. The bell rang with 18 seconds remaining. I landed on my shoulder and rolled through the sand. Almost 1,000 witnesses stood and shouted. Ivor checked all 3 seals himself. Control passed. The noise doubled. Corvin did not clap. Bram did. 3 slow times. Ivor returned to the center. Instability test remains. He opened the 2nd case and removed a black crystal rod. This measures stress in divine channels. Silas will activate multiple blessings until we determine his safe limit. Orin stood. No. The arena quieted. You still assume he has normal divine channels? Orin said. Every human does, Ivor replied. Every contracted human does. Maeve stood beside Orin and raised her copied inventories. We also object until the church explains these. She described the 6 erased symbols and the 193 relics in the warehouse. Corvin stood. This examination is about Silas. Maeve looked at him. You placed Silas in that warehouse. The crowd reacted so loudly that Corvin sat down again. Ivor walked to the table and read the pages. He did not call them fake. Selma asked, Did the Central Church know? Ivor waited before answering. Yes. Silence hit the arena. How much? Maeve asked. Not enough. Some divine traditions were removed from public worship after conflict centuries ago. Most surviving records are sealed above my authority. Questions exploded from the seats. Were the gods dead? Why were the relics hidden? Why had old shrines been destroyed? Ivor raised his hand. I do not know the full history. He looked angry saying it. Not at us. At the wall above his own rank. That made the institution behind him more frightening than he was. I walked to the relic table. The half-mask sat beneath a clear cover. One of its 6 lines glowed faintly. Ivor saw it. What is that? The relic that spoke to me. What did it say? At last, a human they could not choose. Everyone heard me. Ivor looked from the mask to the null crown. Put it inside the suppression field. Orin objected. I said, do it. I wanted the answer too. I placed the mask beside the crown. Ivor activated suppression. White light filled the circle. Official blessings vanished around us. The mask shook. 1 glowing line became 2, then 3. Orin stood. 4. Maeve dropped her pen. 5. The arena stopped breathing. 6. All 6 lines burned white. The system spoke inside my head. The suppression field had removed the noise of active official contracts. 6 active divine signatures remained through the relic. Not memories, not dead gods. Active. Ivor saw my face. How many? 6. Then the half-mask rose into the air by itself. The null crown cracked. A voice came from the mask. Not in my mind, out loud. You buried our names.
The upper seats erupted. Selma went pale. Corvin froze. Lyra moved closer to the circle. The mask turned toward the floor. 6 thrones remain beneath your city. The ground shook. A crack ran across the arena stone. People screamed and moved toward the exits. I formed my shield over Lyra and the nearest students as dust fell. 5 seconds later, the shaking stopped. The mask dropped into my hands. The null crown lay broken at my feet. Nobody could call it a private vision. Almost 1,000 people had heard the same voice. By afternoon, the rumor had escaped the academy. Students copied Maeve's inventory numbers. Temple workers demanded old records. Someone painted 6 white lines on an outer wall. Ivor did not arrest me. He finished the examination report. Controlled but unprecedented. No divine contract detected. Immune to contract severance. Combat control passed. The Central Church registered me as the first unbound relic bearer. The title sounded ridiculous. Dax loved it. The church paid 100 silver for the examination and 26 more because the destroyed null crown had produced valuable data. After medicine, food, and 6 silver for archive copies, my savings reached 221 silver. My combat rank moved from 68 to 21. 4 permanent blessings, 221 silver, rank 21. 5 days earlier, the altar had given me 0. Both results were correct. No god had chosen me. That was exactly why abandoned blessings could. Corvin permanently lost authority over relic missions that evening. He kept an administrative position during the shrine investigation, but everyone saw the notice. Bram found me reading it. "I still think your fire is pathetic," he said. "It is. Your shield is annoying." "Also true." He hesitated. "I would have won if the bucket had not been there." "No." He stared at me, then laughed once and walked away. Not friendship. Progress. At sunset, I returned to the warehouse. Dax had hung a sign above the door. "Divine Trash Heap, Home of Historical Problems." I removed it. He had another copy. Dinner waited inside. Lyra brought roast chicken with crisp, salty skin. Kellen brought soft bread. Maeve remembered cheese after direct instructions. Oren brought preserved vegetables. Selma brought hot potatoes. Even Ivor stayed for 10 minutes before returning to the church office. I tore bread and dipped it into the chicken juices. The potatoes were buttery and covered with herbs. The cheese was sharp. The warehouse smelled warm instead of dusty. Nobody discussed whether I was human property. That improved the meal. Lyra sat beside me. "You began the week with 8 silver, no room, and no blessing." "Yes." "Now you have 221 silver, rank 21, 4 blessings, central certification, and 6 underground gods speaking through a broken mask." "The mask is not responsible for the underground part." "That is your objection?" I looked around. 3,000 relics, a real mattress, a warm stove, people eating at my table. 5 days earlier, this place had been punishment. Now the church wanted access to it. My real advantage was not that trash had secretly been treasure. It was that everyone else had agreed not to look closely at what they threw away. After dinner, the others left. Lyra stayed to stack plates. At the door, she looked back. "You are going to touch more relics tonight." "Yes." "That was not a question." "I know." "Sleep before becoming a larger religious crisis." "I will consider it." She smiled and left. I locked the warehouse. For the first time all week, every shelf was quiet. I sat at the table with the half-mask in front of me. Midnight came. The warehouse bell rang once by itself. One relic whispered, then 10, then 50, then hundreds. Voices filled all 3 floors. Some begged, some laughed, some cried. Some spoke languages I had never learned but somehow understood. The system counted abandoned blessings faster than I could follow. Not 3, not 20. Hundreds. White lights spread across one shelf, then red, blue, gold, black. The entire warehouse woke around me. Then every voice stopped at the same time. Something far beneath the floor spoke through the stone. "Scavenger, come down and collect what remains."